Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Senior Living 411 series. Today, I have a very special guest with me today. It's Mr. Zamal Whyte. Zamal is an investment planner, financial planner with the Royal Bank. And today we're going to discuss questions like how much is enough? How do I maximize my income in retirement? And so many other questions. So Zamal, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm happy
Yes.
to have you here with me. I've been excited for this conversation.
I know, I'm excited too.
All right. So Zamal, I'm going to start off with my famous first question.
Yes.
What is your story?
Wow.
What is your path that led you into financial
planning?
Yes.
Wow, loaded question, but let's see if we can give you the short version of it. So, believe it or not, I came to Canada just for going to school. So originally from Jamaica, I came here when I was 18. Parents never actually moved here. They, just came for university.
Okay.
So came up and went to school in Hamilton. Yes. For those of us who know it, Oscar Wee Wee, go Ticats. But I went to McMaster University.
Right.
And I started the bank early. I got lucky. There was a program called Jobs Ontario Youth, I think it was called.
I remember that.
Yes.
I'm
okay.
dating myself.
Oh yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, I
Good.
remember that.
Awesome. So it was a co-op thing. So what they did was they put youth with some corporations, and I got blessed. It was Royal Bank. I got started with. So and they taught me the teller program. Back then it was called tellers. Now it's called client advisors.
Client advisors, yes.
Yes. So when I learned that, and it was for the summer of '94. Now I'm going to date myself.
Okay.
And then from there, I just got blessed that at the time it was finished, there was what was called a work arrangement, which was just on Saturdays at a branch close to the university.
Okay.
And they offered me the position. So I was like, sure, no problem. So it turns out that I was a teller all through university as a result.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I actually started with the bank. And when it was time to go back home after my degree, they actually offered me a position as a personal banker.
Okay.
So, I sort of thought about it, and I was like, instead of going back home and trying to find a job, I'll probably just try this banking thing.
Right.
Here's a job right here offered to you. So, and the bank was good to me throughout school. So that's how I started. So I was a personal banker for a couple of years. And then as a personal banker, you see both sides of the ledger, if you will. I did some credit. I also did some investments, right? You're pretty much a generalist. And I came to learn pretty early that I didn't really like the credit part of banking. I found it, I thought it was a tougher conversation to talk to people about their mortgages, as it relates to saying yes or no was really the tough part for me, denying somebody a mortgage, as opposed to talking about investments and saying maybe, you got 7% return as opposed to 10. I could have that conversation.
Right.
So when I realized that I didn't mind that, then I started to look, how do I do the investment stream? And the first thing I had to do was, really get to know the Royal Bank products.
Okay.
So what I did was I took a lateral move from personal banking to a department called Invest by Phone. Okay. So RBC has a lot of investments, obviously phone too. We have a big channel through that. So when I did that lateral, went to the Invest by Phone department, really learned your products on the phone, because you have to really speak to clients, sell the products, but you're on the phone. They could be anywhere in Canada. And that really consolidated my knowledge of the different products. And at the same time, you're working on my professional designation, which is called the Personal Financial Planning Designation.
Okay, that's what the PFP.
That's where it comes from. That's right. So once I got that, under my belt, if you will, then, I knew it was time to make the jump to financial planning. So that was around 2004. So I've been a planner since 2004.
Oh, wow.
And it's just it's been exciting.
All right. So you get to help a lot of people.
Yes, that's the nice part.
And I was going to say, is that the most rewarding part of your job?
Absolutely. There, I consider myself almost like a life event coach.
I like that title, life event coach.
Yeah. So what that is in my part, the way I view it is that because, money is so personal, right?
Yes.
And different things happen, when it relates to money, and life sort of takes you through different journeys. Exactly. So what we say is that, any sort of life event that sort of triggers the motion or money moving now, I'm able to come in and bring some objectivity to the situation, and certainly knowing the products that we know we're able to see where the client wants to go, and then marry the two together. So that's the fun part.
All right, that sounds awesome. Now, I know you work with a wide range of clients.
Yes.
And just for the purpose of tonight's show,
Yes.
I'm going to narrow it down to retirement.
Yes,
and seniors and those different transitions that they
special
go
parts
through.
of them.
Because that is a special part. And as we know, for a senior who's looking at making a transition, the costs are expensive. It could be anywhere from, let's be real, $5,000 and up.
Yeah, we've
And
seen
that's
some
the
crazy numbers.
basics. So for most of these people, their home is their biggest asset.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How can one utilize the sale of their home now to transition into, say, a retirement residence?
Right.
And ensure that combined with the money they're getting in, they can bridge a gap, but also not run out of money.
Yes, and then that's the key there, the end part. The thing is that retirement right now, it's almost like a career. That's how we see it, in the sense that you might work somewhere, many different places for a 30-year period.
Yes.
And then when you retire, you find that you're living about 30 years. So so if you look at it from that standpoint, and let's just face it, like technology and medicine is such that for the most part, on average, people are living longer than they used to. That's for sure. So one of the things we want to ensure is, we don't want to outlive our money. That's the challenge right now. Yes. So to your point, when it comes to, clients making the transition, and here's another big life event. So you might have lived in a home, while you're working. It could be 20, 30, even sometimes 40 years we've seen. So that alone emotionally is a big thing to change. Right. To leave that sort of comfortable, familiar place and go into a retirement home. So you're dealing with some emotional things,
Definitely.
But to your point now the hard facts in terms of how the dollars translate.
And that's the biggest stress people have.
Absolutely. That just adds to the stress, right?
Yes.
So it's hard enough to sort of leave the familiar and go into unknown, but then but in that unknown now, how am I going to afford this unknown?
Exactly.
Yeah, so
you don't want to go and then be kicked out because you can't afford.
Well, that's the thing. That's exactly right. So what we try and do is show clients, because I don't think that clients really understand that we've also recognized that this was going to be happening. And and especially here in Canada, when the demographics is such that we have a lot of people in this sort of boat, if you will.
Yes.
So we really need to sort of take care of them from a standpoint of letting them know that, what, we knew this was going to be happening. And there's some products out there and some people that can guide you along the way.
So what you're saying is that the banking industry has been proactive in creating products to help people with this transition.
Yes, that's an excellent way to put it. So that's exactly what it is. So it's about having that vision, and then obviously, providing the provision, if you will, through people like myself and other professionals to bring that to the table.
Okay. Now, with that provision, if someone's on a fixed income and now they have this extra lump sum of money coming in and they're making, a residual income, so to speak, off of it, how does that impact their taxes? Right. And how do you avoid their income suddenly getting bumped up and they're going into a higher tax bracket?
And this is where it now becomes we delve down into exactly what we're looking at. So what I like to tell clients all the time, when we're facing a situation like this is, the two things that we really want to consider is budgets and taxes. Okay. Those are the two big things. Everything else, I think, is a spin-off of those two. And when we talk about it, so once you sell that home, let's just sort of do a quick hypothetical here.
Right.
So we've sold the home, and because that is your personal home, there's no capital gains on that part. So you really get a decent lump sum. Yes. But no, it's up to how we steward that, how we make sure that works for us.
Okay.
Right. And then to your point with regards to taxes, now we want to make sure that, because we want to draw an income.
Yes.
But we want it to be as tax efficient as possible.
Exactly.
And that's the key. So what we find is that there's vehicles that we have now where instead of sort of redeeming, if you will, or just withdrawing, which will trigger taxes, there's investments that actually could give you a distribution on a monthly basis that is as tax efficient as possible. Okay. So, just without getting too into, how boring it is in terms of taxes, I'm just going to do a quick 101 here. Yeah. So we have different types of taxes that investment income produces. And then there's interest income, which comes from bank accounts, which comes from any sort of fixed deposit, like GICs,
Right.
bonds and such.
Mhm.
Those are taxed at 100%.
Okay.
So, so a lot of seniors, unfortunately, because they like to be safe, sometimes the safest thing is the worst tax.
I was going to say that
It's
because
just-
you mentioned investments to
Yes.
an older person. They don't want to hear nothing about that
No.
because they don't want to take that risk
Yes,
that you would take when you're younger. They
Right.
want to hold on.
right. So I think what we need to do is sort of really look how the word risk is such a big word now.
Mhm.
Like there's different
Mhm.
ways to be risky, right?
Yes.
And sometimes, especially when you're in a progressive tax regime like we have here in Canada,
Mhm.
we love paying our taxes because we'll see what it gets. But if we can manage our tax bill, it's better, especially when you're on a fixed income. So
Right.
so being taxed at your marginal tax rate for every sort of dollar that you make from an investment income, it's not
Right.
really probably the best way to go.
Okay.
Right. So then there's also what's called dividend income.
Mm.
So investments that would produce a dividend,
Right.
that can actually be a little more tax efficient. On by rule, just sort of rule of thumb, at least 2/3.
Okay.
Right. So you're able to sort of keep a little bit more in a dividend income situation.
Okay.
And then there's capital gains,
Right.
right, which is that's straight off the stock situation. So if you
Okay.
buy a stock for $10 and you're able to sell it at $12, that $2 gain, if you will.
Right.
Well, in that situation, you only have to pay 50%.
On the dollar.
Yes,
Right.
for taxes.
Okay.
So you can see that as we go down the continuum, there's
Mhm.
more and more tax efficient incomes that we can start to make.
Okay.
And that's what we try and concentrate on when we're, trying to find how we can make this pool of money that we've made from the sale,
Right.
into something that when you're paying out a distribution,
Mhm.
it's going to, it's not how much you make, but how much you can keep after
Right.
you file, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
And so with that being said, I know from a conversation we've had before,
Yes.
when someone does this, is the money locked in? Are there
Right.
ways for them to have accessible money and then long-term money?
Right. And that's
How do you figure that out?
yes, and that's the key, right? Because
Mhm.
again, you don't want to sort of say, okay, fine, we made some money here in the sale of the home,
Yeah,
and now you can't touch the money anymore.
exactly.
Right. So
Exactly.
the flexibility is great in that these vehicles that we're talking about,
Mhm.
albeit long term in the thinking of the investment part, is really liquid.
Okay.
So the ability to get to it is just as easy too. Just
Right.
understanding that if one does do a lump sum withdrawal, it might change the monthly amount for the next month.
Okay.
Because that's just how
Got
these
it.
things work. But you still be getting a
Right.
distribution monthly.
Right.
Mhm.
And would you recommend also using a tax-free savings account, and how would that play into the whole
Excellent. So now we're going to start talking about
Mhm.
how we can sort of, again, another tool in the toolkit, if you will, as it
Okay.
relates to
We've
taxes.
got a toolbox, people, of options.
There's a financial planning toolbox. Absolutely. So in 2009,
Mhm.
the tax-free savings account was launched.
Okay.
And I consider it the best thing since sliced bread, if you will.
Really?
As it relates to taxes. Because again, Canada's awesome. We really love it here, but we do pay our fair share of taxes.
Yes. we do.
Right. So definitely what happens with the tax-free, it gives an opportunity, every Canadian above 18, to
Mhm.
put some money away that will never have to worry about what vehicle it was in to produce an income,
Right.
because you would never be taxed on that amount.
Right.
And the accessibility depends on the vehicle you use within it. But at the same time, if you have something that's producing, some return, if you will,
Right.
and you pull on that, you took it out of it,
Right.
no taxes involved, and you also get back the space,
Okay.
if you will, that contribution room.
Right.
Right. And it's something that actually comes up on your notice of assessment.
Okay. Yes. At
Right.
the bottom, it always
Yes,
says what your
exactly.
room is.
So
Yeah.
now you have two lines. You're going to have a line about your RSPs. So I'm
Yes.
sure we're going to get into that.
Mhm.
And then a line about the tax-free to sort of let you know what room you have. So the tax-free by far is something that gives you more flexibility now in
Okay.
this day and age, because again, it's
Right.
not just tax shelter like an RSP, but it's tax-free,
Mm.
totally
Okay.
away from any tax situations.
Okay. Well, everyone who's
Mm-hmm.
now joining, I want to just remind you, you're with Desiree Tuitt and Zamal Whyte from Royal Bank. He's a financial planner, and today we're talking about the 411 on financial planning.
Yes.
Now, Zamal, is it such thing as being too soon to start planning
Right.
for this?
No, you know what? My dad says all the time, if you fail to plan
Plan
to
to fail.
fail. And that's something that,
Right.
so there's never a too soon thing. What we do at RBC is, we talk about retirement transition.
Yes.
And what that really is that instead of coming in like how we used to in the day and somebody sort of says, okay, Zamal, I'm retiring next month. Here's my package. What can you do for me? Which I mean that, we're not miracle workers, but we try to work with that. What we want to try and do now is a 3 to 5 year sort of timeout, So if you sort of have that on the horizon, then that means that we can start using some tools, and it's really a lot of hypotheticals, but it will become more and more real closer that time is. And then once we have the real numbers, we plug those in, and that's the person is going to be more prepared. But nothing is better and nothing makes me feel better than to see somebody retiring because they wanted to, not because they had to.
Exactly.
So that's where that comes from.
And just as a little segue, I guess for someone who is self-employed, business owners and whatnot, what are their options?
Right.
Because we don't get the regular deductions and whatnot.
Right.
So what would be your advice on that? Should we put away extra?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Business owners it's unique, right? It's one of those things where there's no sort of company pension, right?
Exactly.
So you have to make your own.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, you really have to be very disciplined as it relates to saving as a business owner, right? So it's great to, and I know it's really, while you're working, it's about the business and growing that business too. But at the same time, you have to also sort of think ahead. And as you get closer to that time, what does that look like in terms of business succession planning, in terms of, building up your savings as well too.
Right.
So, I always sort of say the earlier the better, and sometimes, once you start early, and there's formulas that show you and graphs that they say if you start saving earlier, then by the time you get to a certain age, exactly, and then some people, they start later, but they save more, but they still can't catch back that person that started earlier.
Exactly.
So the time is something that you can just never sort of redeem, if you will, right? So, and business owners, they have I don't want to say the luxury, because the flexibility is there, but again, with that comes some accountability. You have to really be able to sort of say, yes, I'm building my business, but I also want to build my retirement at the same time.
What about now? We all know that the first choice for those that are aging and want to retire is to age in place, which means stay at home.
Yes.
So someone who wants to stay in their home, they're on a fixed income. Would you recommend there's ways to probably withdraw? Would it make sense, I guess, to withdraw some of the equity from the home and invest it, or like how would you manipulate that situation? Yeah,
that's those situations are. I always like to say it's a case-by-case basis, because it really has to do with a comfort level, certainly a level of sophistication to understanding, because now we're going to talk about strategies that, that there's risk and reward in everything, right? And so what I like to see is to try and understand the situation a little more to see exactly what are the other things we could use. Certainly that's one of the things, but, my thing is always, I'd never want to put, a senior especially, giving them another monthly payment, which is what investor would do unless it's strategic. There's certainly it's called leveraging, right? So certainly we could use some of that, but it really would take a senior that understood what we're talking about as we went along, and and then had the fiscal responsibility of sort of doing it. Because certainly the strategy could work. It's not the first thing I sort of think of, because certainly, again, it does take some understanding and
savviness to it.
Exactly, that's the perfect word. That's exactly right. Yes.
And there's also an option if, say, someone wanted to put in a secondary suite. I guess they could. Would that be? No, we're talking
exactly. So that's right. So that's another thing too, right? So because there's different ways to, when we take that equity, if that's what we decide to do, what do we do? Do we, to your point, do some renovations or some alterations to the house to provide probably like a standalone thing where we can have a rental, that will provide some income, or do we just sort of take it and then put that into an investment that produces the income while you're in the house, and then it has to make enough sense to say that you can cover that payment plus have some cash flow.
Exactly. You don't want to just be breaking even on it.
That's right.
Wouldn't be.
That's why, that's exactly right. So that's why it's such a unique situation, depending on the dynamics of everything else for that senior. Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Another question, I should say. Give me an example of a situation where you had someone who was older coming into you.
Okay.
They were confused. They weren't sure how this was going to work. And not with really, I know every situation is tailor suited. There's not one situation that fits in a box.
That's right.
But give me an example of how you would walk them through the process.
Right.
To where they want to be and give them that peace of mind. Is that making sense to you?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
I think so. We're saying that
a
somewhere
real
that,
life situation.
Right,
You had
that-
someone like that comes to mind when I
Okay.
give me a situation.
right, I see what you mean.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I mean, one of the biggest things I find,
Mhm.
or probably the most challenging things is when you're working with loved ones.
Oh, yes. Yes,
So
that.
I mean, so that it's hard because as a in the case a son or a daughter in our cases working with that
Yeah.
that parent, and obviously you love your parents. It's probably in a home that you grew up in,
Mhm.
so there's a lot of ties there, and it's interesting how, because the unknown is so varied for them, and I understand that generation a little more, probably you as well too,
Yeah.
because we specialize in them a lot more.
Right.
There are things that they're tied emotionally to, that is, it's almost like a paradigm shift for them to
Yes.
do something different.
Exactly.
But what in a situation like that, I think the key is really to have everybody be on the same page
Mhm.
as it relates to the pros and cons
Right.
of that next step. And you just
Okay.
really want to try and inform. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
I never try and push it on them. You
Yes.
never want to give somebody, a glass of water with a fire hose.
Yes.
And that's how it is. So it really has to come along. What I've found is easy does the process,
Yes.
steady goes, so
Baby steps.
yes. So you
Yes.
start planting the baby steps, if you will. Try
Right.
and show them
Mhm.
that, like a situation like having a lump sum producing your income,
Right.
and not worrying about snow or for all the seasons that we love here in
Mhm.
Canada,
Love it.
yeah, not worrying about property taxes,
Yes.
not worried about
Household repairs.
yes,
and
as simple as those things are,
yes. Leaks in the basement.
yes,
And talking from experience.
exactly. So I think
Mhm.
when you start to say that, there can be an alternative
Right.
where it's all inclusive,
Mhm.
and the price tag on it is going to be taken care of
Right.
from the sale, if you will,
Right.
or from the proceeds,
Mhm.
and you plant seeds. We believe in seed time and harvest, right? So once you plant the seeds and you keep nurturing it, and
Yes.
you'll start to see the spark plug or
Yes.
the light.
I like that simile. We're planting seeds and it's going
Mhm.
to harvest. So you reap what you sow.
Exactly.
I think it's the
exactly.
saying. So if you go into this with an open mind and you start planning,
Yes.
then you're going to actually reap the benefits.
That's
of
right.
it.
And it's all about really what's in it for them.
Yes.
So if you really try with that, you start with the end in mind,
Mhm.
then then the deliverance is going to be.
That's my saying. Begin with the
Is it?
end in mind.
Yes,
Begin with
absolutely.
the end in mind. And it's also, like I like to preach to people, our parents, your loved ones, your aunts, your uncles, your mothers, whoever it is, they've worked all of their lives for this asset. And yes, they may have purchased it for dirt cheap compared to what it is now. But truth be told, a lot of parents are worried about what their legacy is. And with that comes, what will they be leaving for their children?
Yes.
But it's also for us to let them understand that this is their time.
Yes.
And if they need to make a move or they need to make a transition, don't worry about, the wills, and we'll get back to
Yes.
wills, but don't worry about
Mhm.
all that. Do what you need to do so you're able to grow old gracefully.
Yes, and,
Right.
and that's the key right there. I think
Yes.
it's live your best life now still,
Mhm.
and that's a part of the
Yes.
sowing, to let them understand that what we want you to stay in the land of, while you're in the land of the living,
Yeah.
live.
Live, exactly.
And then what that means is not
Exactly.
worrying about the different
Yes.
day-to-day things that
Mhm.
that you used to
Mhm.
take care of no problem, but no,
Mhm.
because of
Mhm.
that advanced stage of where you are,
Yeah.
it's not as easy, but it's still on your
Exactly.
mind. So then
Exactly.
it's more like it's emotional, but it's also a mental relief too, that you're trying to show them that what can happen in that alternative life. Yes.
Exactly. Now let's touch a little bit on wills
Mhm.
and estate
Yes.
planning.
Okay.
If someone does say sell their home, move into a retirement residence, and they pass away, how does that work on the planning stages? That you have someone, a beneficiary that you
Right.
assign it to, or
Right.
how would that all work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm a big believer in wills.
Yes.
Wills should really, you want to,
Mhm.
those last wishes and, things that you want to have happen.
Yes.
And nobody else should sort of dictate how it happens, and without a
Yes.
will, that's what could happen. So you want to make sure that conversation is being had with all of your loved ones at that age, because
And not to mention the money being wasted if you don't have a will, then you now have to go through probate and the court
Absolutely.
to taking the money.
absolutely, yes,
Right.
there's the estate taxes that
Mhm.
just unnecessary, just because of of not planning.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly. So what happens is then, when funds are, now we have funds that are producing the income. We have we have the loved one inside the home. The will can speak to specific things.
Okay.
Which is great because that's what you'd want, because there's two things. There's an unregistered side of investments and there's a registered side.
Okay.
So when I say registered, we're really talking about the products really produced from the government, if you will.
Okay.
So banks just really facilitate them. So we're talking about anything with the R's, right?
RRSPs,
So yes, so the RRSPs, now we're talking about the tax-free savings account, but it is a government product. So anything that's registered would have the ability to have a beneficiary.
Right.
And that's key. So because the beneficiary would sort of supersede the will, if you will.
Okay.
Right. But the majority of the funds, because it came from the sale and it's producing the income, will be on a non-registered side. And that's the reason why the will is so key. Because you can't have a beneficiary in a non-registered investment.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right.
Wow.
So that can be, so just like a bank account. There's no beneficiary in a bank account. You can make it joint. And then that is called joint with rights of survivorship.
Okay.
Yes. So that's
to real estate.
So it's exactly joint tenants, right? So
tenants,
that's but it's not a beneficiary situation. But joints would make it such that that person that survived would now have the assets, if you will. Himself. Right. Okay. But so will take care of non-registered stuff, and certainly the beneficiary, state and the beneficiary will take care of the registered stuff.
Wow. This could be a segment. This could easily be a segment because there's so many areas to touch on, and we haven't even touched the surfaces yet. And this is one reason I believe when I meet with a client, the first thing we determine is, let's make a plan financially. Yes, because if you have your financial plan in place, life is about options. And most things in life cost money. So we have to talk. Finances is sometimes a sensitive topic. It is. It is a sensitive topic, especially from the old school as well.
Yes, exactly.
It's more for hush-hush mentality, but it's something that needs to be addressed to make sure that your needs are taken care of.
And that's so true. And when the more you talk about it, this is what I tell clients all the time. Because the first few times, it really does, it's discovery, right? We're trying to, we really want to get personal discovery. And it's like the more you can sort of divulge is the more we can sort of make that plan with the options. Exactly.
And it's also, I think, part, like you said, discovery. It's also seeing what exactly do they currently have that they may have from younger, that they may have forgotten about, and it may not be the most efficient. There's so many lost accounts people forget about and different things. So it's really peeling back the layers and seeing what's out there and how to make it all work and put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Because at the end of the day, like we talked about, there's different life stages.
Yes.
And different life stages call for different events and different investments.
And then turn of events. Yes. Your health can suddenly change and different things like that can happen.
Yes. So one of the things we talk about at RBC is, we have like these life cards. And it's cool because we know the money is personal and but it's normally the things behind the money that really drives what becomes a priority at a certain time, right? So we talk about the health card. We talk about, there's a lifestyle card, there's a home card, a family card, because that invokes some conversation. Because again, it's, to your point, it's so personal that, you don't want to run to a product or a solution right away. We're really just trying to find out some personal discoveries and then the financial discoveries. And once we have everything on the table, now we can start to move the pieces in place for that person.
Well, I'm sure anyone seeing this video, this has prompted probably a lot of aha moments, a lot of questions. I know how to get in contact with you. How do the people out there get in contact with you?
Awesome. Well, you know what? I'm so easily accessible. You know what? You can hit me at RBC. I'm there right there, and I'm here in Mississauga. So I'm at the Mavis and Matheson branch. You can send me an email. It's zamal.whyte@rbc.com. Give me a call at work. No problem. I'm always at that branch at 905-712-5010. Okay. And I don't know. That's it. LinkedIn, whatever. Social media,
Google Google his name. Google is so great. We can't hide.
That's right.
When professionals like us, you just Google us, and we're all over the place.
That's it. We're there. We're in the clouds.
Right. Or reach out to me again. My name is Desiree Tuitt. My number is 416-333-8520. Go to goldendreamliving.com. I'm with Keller Williams right now. reach out to me. These are conversations that we need to have, and you're never too young to have this conversation.
Yes.
Because one thing, if you God forbid you don't die young, you're gonna get old. So you can't avoid this. This is one thing that's guaranteed in life. You never tell. Make sure you have these conversations. Reach out to Zamal.
Please.
Reach out to someone like me. I will connect you with people like Zamal, who you can see is very passionate about what he does. He's done it for a long time. And he's with a very reputable bank as well, with RBC. That brings a lot of punch. When I hear RBC, I'm like, okay, people come comfortable with that, right? Yes. Zamal, are there any closing words that you want to say before we sign off?
Right.
Today?
Yeah. You know what? I just want to let people know that it's not as far-fetched as you think. It's something that can be had for everybody, and I know it's a paradigm shift for, older people or older clientele, but at the same time, when we sit down and we have the conversations, you'll find that there's a place for everyone, and there's definitely products for everyone. So that's why I'm never worried about that part. Exactly. It's really about sharing, and the more you open up, the more that product is going to marry. We can marry the right product with the right customer.
Like that, marry the right product. Sounds like such a commitment with the products.
That's it.
But that's what it is. It's a commitment to what is right for you, and
that's right.
Or the marriage, right? The thing is that people need to realize that, like I said, it's decisions we need to make,
yes,
moves we need to make. And the best way to put it is like this. If you're sick and you have a foot pain, you might go to your general practitioner, but he'll recommend you to a foot doctor, to a specialist. Yes. So that's the whole thing. A lot of people like to listen. Once we start having these topics with friends and family, I'm not saying don't listen to them because they have their experiences,
right?
But don't just rely on what your friends say and what this person's saying, what that person's experiences. Everyone's experiences are different.
Yes.
Find yourself a specialist,
yes,
and get the right advice so you make the right informed decision. These shows are all about educating people, and that's all it's about: educating, having conversations. Again, if you have any questions whenever we're doing these shows, I know the questions are going to come. Just start asking questions. It's a free, open, safe, it's a safe environment to have these conversations. So please, 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 I implore you, please feel free to do so. Once again, my name is Desiree Tuitt. This is Zamal Whyte, and thank you for signing in to the Senior Living 411 series. The next 2 weeks, the next show will be the 411 on fitness. I have a lady who's coming in to talk about fitness. She actually brings the fitness to you, fitness on the go. You'll see some ads coming up, but looking forward to see you then. Until then, have a wonderful, blessed weekend and happy Remembrance Day.
Yes, right.
Today. All right. Take care.
Take care.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye.